This is the present status of our project. And so let's begin with this idea of, let's begin with families. So typically most objects you create in Revit come from a family. So for example, if I zoom in here and I select this wall here, when I look at the property that has the name of the family, in this case, basic wall, and these are types of products inside that family or that collection called basic wall. If I were to go to here and grab that door here comes from the door passage single flush family. And this is the one door here that's custom. It was copied and modified called JM3696. That's one of the types of doors available in that family. And usually with families, you can take this a step further. Once a type is selected here, you can actually use edit type and manipulate it, make a duplicate of it, a copy of it, and you can see what properties are available. Someone who created this family originally allowed the user, us, to come into this menu and modify it. You can change the width, the height, the thickness of the door panel, so on and so forth. These set of tools that are available were engineered by someone. They were programmed into Revit and turned into a family and allow us to access that information. It's not always, these settings are not always available. Every family is different depending on who created the file. And so sometimes you might not have access to certain information. Say, for example, you downloaded a door family from a manufacturer and they only sell 3 foot by 7 foot doors. And maybe they only sell aluminum doors that are 3 by 7. Well, then you might not have access to the panels material. You might not have access to the doors width and height because they only sell one type of door. So they lock you out of those menu items and you cannot manipulate them any further because that's not what they produce or make available to the public. But in this case, this is very flexible. This is more of a generic family, and they allow you to have a great many choices in editing that file. Now, in this project, there is some existing conditions here. For example, there's a washroom, and this washroom here has several vanities, some toilets here, toilet stalls, some urinals in this case, and here's some another vanities, and then I guess this would be a sink or a dispenser. So if you have these kinds of products, these items don't show up in the Revit interface. There is no menu in here for washroom fixtures, for example. If you look through the architecture tab where you expect to find these items, none of these items here have anything to do with plumbing fixtures. And so in this case, you have to load a family that currently doesn't exist in your project. And so under Insert, there's a button here called Load Autodesk Family, where you can go out and find a Revit family and insert it into your project so it exists in your file. And then you have to understand where to find that item to use in your project. So step one would be, and again, here you have to be loaded into Revit here. I'm logged into Revit because these are my options. Load family is in the case where you've visited a manufacturer's website. They offer Revit families. You could do a search for Revit families on Google, for example, and they offered you a family of washroom fixtures. You download that file off the internet. They're typically called RFA files, and you use this button to find the family, click on it, and hit open. And it'll install the family into your project. It'll make it available to you. If I go to Insert, Load Autodesk Family, this is where Autodesk provides a folder on the cloud of different files that you can use for your design purposes. So example here, if I use Autodesk Family, I would do a search for, in this case, I would do plumbing and architecture. And then these are all the plumbing families. So if I want a round vanity, I'd probably install this one. If I want a double vanity sink for a kitchen, I would install this one. If I wanted a wall hung bathroom, I would install this one. This is floor mounted toilet, bathtubs. There's all types of products here. There's a square single sink here, for example. Let's say we grab this one here and this one here. Now, if there are obviously others that are available out there in the world, you can go to Kohler's website and download different fixtures from their website, find the RFA file, download it on your computer, and then use load family to install it into Revit. But let's say I install this one here and this one there. Hit load. So, and then I guess it's already in my file. I clicked override because it existed presently. So let's say here, I want to install these sinks into my project. So for example, here in the washroom, there aren't any washroom fixtures currently present in my project here. So this would be very similar to a door. So here in the washroom, I would go to Architecture tab, and because it doesn't exist, Revit has a tool called Component, and components are generic items that you install into Revit. So this is where your families will reside if they don't fall into the normal categories. Categories like windows and doors, for example. So if it's not a normal category in Revit, they all fall under components. You look here, place a component, click that, and then you look in this menu for the components that are available. So for example, here, this 19 by 19 inch round vanity is available here. This is the name of the family, the collection, and this is the type of product inside that collection. So if I click 19 by 19, it's assigned to my mouse, and I can place it on the screen here. Now, I'm going to place it here for a second. Escape. These products have properties. So if I click on it, here it says that it is on level 1. And if I go edit type, it has information. And so in this case, its material is porcelain, and then the faucet is metallic, and it has top of counter is expected to be 2'7". All of these can be editable, but if I place it here for a second, and I'm going to grab a reference plane, and I am going to just draw a line there, I can use that line to align this object. Families have center points, center lines. So if I do AL for a line, and I snap to this line here, it'll find the center of the family. Here, click, escape. And then I can grab this item with the move command and grab the quadrant and try to find the same point here, which is right there. And I actually snapped, I went too fast. In this case, because I double clicked too fast, it opened the family. Here's a sync vanity round RFA file. The family is open right now. I am not going to do anything to that file. Close it immediately. But what I wanted this to happen. I'm going to delete that line. I no longer need this line here. If you go to 3D, you'll see it here. I grab this wall, rotate around it. There's the vanity floating in space. So no need to adjust it any further. Once we build the countertop later, we can adjust it further in height. But currently, it's floating in space in the washroom in its exact location. And until we build the countertop, there's no need to adjust it vertically. So we'll do that at some future date. And now it's a matter of copying this to all the other locations. So I'm going to copy this by using the copy command. And I'm going to find the quadrant or the circle, like down here somewhere, and pick the exact same point at all the other copies. For example, these locations here. I can always grab that and place it down here, for example. And because it's flipped over, I will simply use the mirror command and find the center point here. And don't use copy, because then you'll have two copies. I want one copy removed. So I turn that off, and then when I mirror it, it'll flip it over. Instead of giving me two copies, I'll just have one copy, one vanity, which is preferred. And then here you simply locate the quadrant of that sink, and it'll snap to the location. And then there's your vanities. Same is true with the toilets, yeah, and the cooler there. If I go at architecture tab, place a component, I can then use another one. For example, I already downloaded a toilet here, wall hung flush meter toilet from Toto. So this product is looking for a location specifically. It's wall mounted. Sometimes the products won't appear on the screen here, but you have to look at these tools here at the top. These determine the placement of families. Sometimes the families are required to be hung on a wall. For example, this toilet. And so currently it's looking for something to be placed on a vertical surface. You have to select a vertical wall to place that toilet. If I place on the work plane, well, currently the work plane is basically the floor plan I'm working on. The ground plane is where I'm drafting on. The ground becomes the surface it's going to be attached to, and you see it's oriented incorrectly. If it was, in this case, I would basically ask it to find something vertical using this button here. And then if I hover over a wall, a vertical surface, it will latch on to that surface. Click, escape, escape. And so here's the product here. I'm going to go wireframe for a second because I want to move this over to the center line of that toilet there. So I'm just going to draw a line here from the edge of that circle. And I can use that to align AL. Align is here. Go to here with the center of this. So this toilet design that I chose is slightly different than the toilet design currently in the project, but I don't have I'm not using the exact manufacturer's specs. If I had the exact specifications of that toilet, who manufactured it, what the model number is of that exact toilet, then I could load it from the family from the internet, assuming that the manufacturer is placing the families on their website, and they typically do. But here, if it's not relevant for me, I can simply copy that toilet from maybe the edge of that edge here. This is the little triangle means the midpoint. It finds the midpoint of these. And you can see very quickly, escape, escape. You can have these toilets laid out here. There. So it's all about you finding the manufacturer's Revit families to ensure the accuracy of the products that you're after. Otherwise, you're resorting to Revit's generic family, which is okay if that's what you want to see, but ultimately you might be producing perspective views or images, and you want the images to portray the actual products you're purchasing as opposed to these generic items from Autodesk. In that case, you want to make sure you find the specific product. In this case, it might not be important. You might want to load a generic furniture family into Revit for the sake of doing a space plan. But if you're doing a rendering, you might want to show the exact furniture product that you're purchasing for your project. And in that case, you want to find that family on the manufacturer's website, download it, whether it be Steelcase or Hayworth or Knoll. You want to find it on their website and download and install it on the Revit project. And so they'll all wind up in this menu here called components. That's how Revit handles families, families that are available to you for use. So here, place a component. I believe I download another family here, and you'll have access to this file as well after the class. So here's a drinking fountain. Click on this drinking fountain here. And then this one, again, wants to find, in this case, this is looking for this family here. Doesn't have options in terms of its placement here at all. There's no options here. So this family in particular doesn't give me any clue as to what it's looking for, but typically I would guess it's looking for a wall. So in this case, if I hover over the wall, suddenly the product appears. If I place it here, click, there's a drinking fountain. If I click on this product, here it's automatically at 2'7" above the finished floor. If I investigate further with edit type, here it has information on the product. These products are customizable. They allow you to go into the materials library and assign materials to these objects. There's some voltage information here, but there's very little else. You see here, you cannot manipulate the product dimensionally. It's not allowed. So these specifications here are not accessible. They're all grayed out because whoever created this family did not allow you to manipulate those numbers. So you're locked out of that menu. It's off limits, basically. So there's very little you can do to this product. But here you can see some of the specification information that you can pull out of Revit into a schedule, for example. And so scrolling through this will give you a lot of information, a lot of detail about that product, most of which you can't have access to. They're all grayed out. Hit OK. There is something here called a graphic water on. Let me check that box because I was hoping that would turn off this label here. And unless there's a little label checkbox in here, I probably cannot turn off the PF label that appears there. I don't see any ability to manipulate that text. So in that case, I would have to manipulate the family itself, which is completely different set of tasks. So we're going to leave that one alone for now. I'll go to 3D and I'll be satisfied with the fact that right there in the hallway are the drinking fountains. Again, if you want these specific ones here, you'll have to find the manufacturers that supply those products and load those families into Revit, and they'll appear in your drawing. So similar to doors, this is where you find and load families into your project. Most important thing is accuracy. Do you want to load a generic family that's supplied by Autodesk, or do you want to load a very specific design family that's available from the manufacturer's websites? Typically, they reside on their websites that can be downloaded. Do a search for Revit family and the manufacturer that is supplying the product that you're after. Let's look at our project. In our project, here, there are a variety of rooms, offices that have curtain walls. These are all curtain wall glass doors, and that is a solid wood door from our set of drawings. So, as an example, these are what the curtain wall doors look like. They're glass with joints. These are butt joints. On occasion, they're the door in the elevations of the wall here. So if I look here at drawing number, let's elevate this wall here, drawing number 7 on A604. A604 is here. Here at the bottom of the screen. And you see there's several offices next to each other. And some are glass, and some are solid doors. There's a mullion next to the door. There's a mullion at the top, left side, right side, but these are butt joints. These are two pieces of glass abutting each other. So if you had that condition in a project and you had to design something like that, the first thing you ask yourself is, do you have the parts required to build your curtain wall? Let's look closely. This mullion here, this rectangle here, is, if I were to measure it, from here to here, it is 4 inches deep and 2 inches wide. I need to make sure I have a 2x4 inch mullion. This glass here, if I were to do a little measurement here, from here to about here, is 3/8 of an inch thick. I don't have a 3-inch thick piece of glass in my project. I'll need those parts to build this curtain wall. And by the way, this glass is dead center in the middle of that mullion. It's not offset by 1.25 inches because the standard practice if I go here and I look at the standard storefront design, for example, this one here called storefront, it looks like this. The glass is offset from center. It's also 1.5 inches thick. These mullions are 2.5 by 5 inch mullions. I don't have the parts I need to do our design. This is more custom. So what I want to do then is I want to make sure I have a kit of parts. I want a 2 inch by 4 inch mullion. And so in your project browser, I can scroll down here to families and open up the little plus sign. I can look at curtain wall mullions. These are my different styles of mullions I have available. One's called a rectangle mullion. I open up that menu, and here are the different types of mullions I have. I have a 2.5 by 5 inch rectangle. I double clicked on it. It opens it here, and you all know the rest. You duplicate, you change the measurements, and you've got a brand new mullion. And it saves it to the list here. I made this one here called 2x4 EXT. I guess I used it on the exterior. I duplicated it, I renamed it, and I made this number 4 inches and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1. So it's a 2x4 inch mullion out of aluminum. That's the curtain wall mullions. Furthermore, curtain wall panels here. There's a panel here called system panel. One's glazed and one's solid. Double click on glazed, and it's 1.25 inches. It's this part of the storefront design that's saved to the Revit family. It's a 1.25 inch panel of glass. I'm sorry, 1.25 inch offset from center. It's 1 inch thick. It's made out of glass. I need one that's 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to duplicate this and make a John 3/8 inch glass. Here, I'll make it 3/8 inches thick. Again, every office has their methods, and I will make it centered, 0, dead center. Do you want to make the glass to be dead center because of this? It'll be 3/8 of an inch because of that. That's my custom glass panel. Okay, so what I can do then is I can build the wall, curtain wall number 1. I can build the wall here, and I can replace the parts that are inside here. You would grab the panel. That's the wrong panel. So I'm going to replace the panel by tab click. And sometimes it has a little pin here because it's basically trying to enforce the rules of the wall. It's trying to force you to keep the panel that it's expecting. I'm going to change that panel. I unpin it, and then here you'll have access to it here. Otherwise, it's going to be grayed out. When it's pinned, I cannot change it here. That menu is disabled. But here, I can open up this menu, and I can choose a different panel. For example, John's 3/8 glass. Click on that one, it becomes thinner. And if I choose the wall, you see it's now dead center, perfectly centered on the wall. So that is nice to have. Now, I'm going to have to do that over and over again because this wall has the same panel. This one has a panel. It also has mullions. Mullions are located at certain locations. What I can do is I can record all those settings into a custom curtain wall. Just like we do any other wall, I can duplicate the entire curtain wall and assign it mullions and glass and save it in my tray here, in my wall types, because I want to save some time. So what I might want to do is I might want to start with, again, the normal curtain wall here. I want to take that curtain wall and duplicate it here. And I might want to make a wall. I'll make a temporary one here. And this saved curtain wall has settings here. And in this list of settings, I can make some adjustments. For example, automatically embed. Yes, I want to cut through walls. Okay, that's done. The curtain wall panel, what is it made out of? I have a list of panels here. I made one already called John's Glass. So I'm going to use that one instead. That one's going to be centered. The joint condition, this is what happens when the mullions reach each other. And so do you want the vertical mullions to be continuous or the horizontal mullions to be continuous when they intersect? You have these options here. The border is the outside edge of the curtain wall. When all the mullions reach each other, which ones are dominant? I'm going to make all the mullions vertical, and I'll show you that in elevation. And then here it says the spacing. I'm not going to touch the spacing. I'm going to build the spacing with my grid. And at the bottom here, I can add mullions. The border is the left and the vertical mullions. This is the left and right side. What mullions do you want to put on the left and right side of the curtain wall? Well, I can choose my 2x4 right there. Notice I am not doing the inner type. If it's not the very far left and the very far right, it's the ones in between. I'm not going to choose that one. I leave it empty. And I'll show you why. I'm going to choose the verticals and the horizontals with the same exact mullion, 2x4. So all these rules, the type of glass, the checkbox here, these mullions, these are things I have to do manually typically. I have to physically click on the curtain wall and assign it the mullions individually. If I did this, it's going to save all this information into my curtain wall. Hit OK. So now, if I were to draw a new curtain wall using my new design, it saves the data. Here, John's temporary curtain wall. If I draw that here, it already has all the rules established. Take a look at it here in 3D. Here, it has a mullion at the top, mullion at the bottom, one on the left, one on the right. It's already in the package. It's been saved as this design. So if that's the case, then what I can do then is I can go to the floor plan and save a ton of time by simply going to here and putting the curtain wall inside the existing wall. It'll cut a hole out of it. I'll go here and I will grab my design called John's Temp, and I'll go here. I'll go from the center of this wall and I'll go to this edge here. And you'll see it'll build that wall. It cut through the gypboard here. Now the door is supposed to be 8 foot. The entire curtain wall is supposed to be 8 foot too tall. The elevations display that information. So this entire wall needs to be 8 foot too tall here. 8 foot 2, 8 space 2. That's how big it is. But there's a door there. And there's a joint in the elevation that should appear because there's little joint lines here, right there, in between the glass panels. You can't have a panel of glass that large. So how do you draw that? Well, if you zoom in closely, there's a little joint right there that shows me where the panel's being split, and there's a mullion right there, obviously. But what I would do if I didn't have the CAD drawing is I would have to decide where to put the joint lines. The joint line is the middle of the mullion here, so I'm going to find the center. I'm going to use Tab, and it's going to find the midpoint. If it doesn't, I need to draw it in one location and then move it over to the center. But I can find the center here, luckily, using Tab, click, and I'm going to draw a joint line right there. That reference plane tells me where that middle is of that mullion. And if I come into here, I can draw another one right there. That joint right there. Click. I can draw a line down to here. So this is telling me if I have a wall, this is where the wall is going to be split with these reference planes. They're guidelines. I erase them when I'm done. So now what you do is you look at the elevation of this wall as if you're standing in front of it, and then cut the wall with the grid command at these locations. So here's a section command right there. I will cut a section across here. Escape, escape. This is going to let me elevate what's in front of this line here. I'm standing on this blue line here, looking in this direction of the arrow. I now have a section appearing here, my in my project browser, section number 1. It's a new view. If I click on the line, it shows me how far I can see. So I'm going to pull this back, and I'm going to see as far as from here to the dotted line. That's how far I can see directly in front of me. So if I double click on this arrowhead, or if I double click on section number 1, because they're the same thing, it'll elevate this view in front of me. Double click. So there's the wall in front of me. There's column number 5. There's the wall in front of me. I guess this is the chipboard wall in the background there. This is the panel in front of me. And here I can show it in color. There it is. There's the wall. And these are my guidelines. This line here and this line here are reference planes. And they show me an alignment and an elevation, which helps me decide where to cut the glass. And so if I use the grid line, the curtain wall grid here, I can hover along the edge here and snap to that green line, click, it cut a line there. Here, click, it cut a line there. Escape, escape. And then I can delete these guidelines. And now I have access to that grid line there and this grid line here. And here, as you can see, I can click on the grid line and adjust these locations. Let's say I didn't have the floor plan. I would just cut the panel in the location that I like. I would adjust these numbers to the placement I want to see. And then there's my spacing. Accommodate the space for a door and put the joint where you'd like it to show up. And there's my panel. So all the same steps, but I'm using a saved curtain wall that came with the mullions, and it came with a piece of glass of my choosing. And then I went further and customized it even further by adding this joint line here and this joint line here. So when I go to 3D, I want to add a mullion here. So go to mullion. I looked at my list of mullions here. I've got some corner mullions. These mullions here, L mullion, quad mullions, these are for corners, like the outside edge of the panel, especially right angles. At the corner are those mullions there. And these rectangle mullions are in infill. This one and this one could be intermediate mullions. So I'm going to grab my 2x4 design and click right here. Click. Escape, escape. I'm going to delete this mullion on the floor. Click. Unpin it because it's saved. You see it's saved there, a little pin. Otherwise, I can't have access to it. It's frozen. So I need to unpin it first before I can make changes to it, like delete. And notice that as soon as I did that, the panel got taller and went down to the floor. So that will become a door. So that's one condition. Any questions on any of the steps I just went through in terms of saving a curtain wall with a kit of parts and then later customizing it further with grids or mullions? Does that make sense? And feel free to chat me if you want to just type a response. Okay. Okay, so let's take this a step further. This is just one condition, and this is relatively easy. Once you have these walls here, you can copy them into multiple locations, but I'll add a door there as well. So let's say I want to put a door here. Revit curtain wall doors are special. And so you have to understand that this curtain wall cannot take a standard door. Here's the curtain wall here. These are panels. I cannot use the door command, find a door of my liking, and place it on this wall here, because you can't add a curtain wall door to a panel. At least that was traditionally what would happen. So what you do typically is you go to Insert and you load a family and you look through the inventory of doors that are available in Revit here. If I go to Doors here, These doors are explicitly curtain wall doors. This one double door, this one with a frame, this one a single glass door. These are available in Revit. All the others are residential doors or commercial doors. I'm going to go just look at commercial doors for a second. These are the doors that are available, but only, I'm sorry, go back. Only this one. These three are special curtain wall doors here. So when you have a curtain wall panel, it can be replaced by a curtain wall door. And the door is as big, will become as big as the panel itself. So let me load these two. Give you an example. Load. So here, if I look in elevation, if I grab that panel right there, tab, click, unpin it. If I look at my wall menu, the door appears on the wall menu if it's a curtain wall door. So you'll see here, I've got one loaded here. I've got curtain wall double storefront, family. This is a type here. That's a double door. This is a single door. If I chose a double door, it replaces the piece of glass with the curtain wall door, and the door becomes as big as the panel. Here. I've got this set to fine level detail. If I went to coarse, you might lose some information like the handles. But typically, if I go to fine level of detail, you'll see all the information that door it's exposed in the family. The programmer decided what to turn on and off. And so the panel tab is the door. So if I chose this door and I chose a single door, this one here, the single door is in its place. It's there. It replaces the door. If I go to plan view, this door has the handle here that lets me flip the doors in and out, just like any normal door. But it's a curtain wall door. Traditionally, you couldn't take a normal door like this door here, and put it in a curtain wall panel. Typically, it would fail. But if I tried it now, if I grab this door here, for example, it comes with the door frame. Hover here, you see, it wants to put it inside the panel, but that's going to cause all sorts of problems. Delete element. Let's look at that in 3D. You see, it put the door in the panel, but you see what happens. The doors come with a frame, and it interferes with all the other logic of the curtain wall. So these typically don't mix. You don't want this door with the frame. So I'm going to undo that. You want to load curtain wall doors typically, but not always. So here's a curtain wall that we created here. If I click on the entire curtain wall, I can go to copy command and grab this corner here and copy it to this corner here. The exact same door. And then maybe I can copy it to this corner here. And it puts the curtain wall at that location. Because it's a wall, it can be copied into multiple locations. And very quickly, I've gotten a design that looks like this. And again, here, I can copy that one, duplicate command, go the corner of that mullion there, and copy it to the same place over here. The corner right there is the mullion. Click, and it puts it right there. This is a little bit off. So this wall has to get longer to line up with the CAD file. So I'm going to grab that old grip and pull it over to here, which is where the mullion should be located, and it makes an adjustment. Now, the grid lines are off. This is obviously different dimensions. And so here, what I'll probably have to do is locate the center of this mullion here. Click on that triangle. That's the center of the mullion. And let's see if they have a joint line. There's a little joint line right there in magenta right there. The center of the panel should be right here somewhere. So these guidelines are showing me where the joints should be on this wall. I'm going to grab this elevation. I'm going to drag it over to here. And I'm going to have it expose what's in front of me here, this location. Double click. Okay, so this grid line should be at this green line here. This is the reference planes. AL for a line. Go to here, with this. Go to here and grab the grid line right there. Click, and you see it moves it over, and it adjusts the size of the door automatically because the grid lines decide how big the doors are, how big the panels are. Move the grid line, you move the size of the door. And so luckily, I now have this all laid out, and I've got that set of doors. That's one situation. Another situation is over here. This corner here. This is a corner office. Here. In fact, this wall is incorrect. It should be more like this. This is the same set of doors and curtain walls, but it's L-shaped. Completely different condition. So let's draw our saved curtain wall because it has the ingredients I want. It has the mullions on the ends, and it has the glass I want, the glass that's centered, not the standard glass. So I'm going to use a John Temp design, and I'm going to put it here, try to find the center of that wall. And I'm going to draw it here, and I'm going to extend it beyond the edge of the corner there. I'm going to drag another one here. Find the center of that wall. I'm going to go beyond the edge of the corner there. Let's take a look at this. This wall is slightly off. I'm going to align this to here. It's slightly off. But and this curtain wall seems to be slightly off. So I'm going to grab this curtain wall here and use the move command and move this corner to that corner. And it slides it up. No problem there. Is this one in the right location? Looks like it's slightly off as well. So I'm going to grab this curtain wall. The curtain wall is the one that shows up with these dotted lines here. Click and move the entire wall from this to there. Lines it up nicely. So this is my design so far. Next, I want to make sure they're facing the same direction. If I click a curtain wall, the arrow is the exterior face. This is the interior face. Make sure they're both facing outward. This is backwards. This is facing inward. It should face outward. So click on the arrow. Make sure it's facing the right orientation. Make sure they're both the same. This is facing out. This is facing out. Then I can type trim, TR, and trim this to this, and it connects together. It makes a corner. This is what will happen. This wall here should be adjusted to 8'2". This wall here should be adjusted to 8'2". Now let's talk about some problems. This corner is incorrect. I want that to be two pieces of glass butting up against each other at the corner. There's a sliver wall coming down there. That's a problem. Incorrect. If I look at it in plan, here, there's something going on here. If I look at line weights, you see I've got some, it's really messy here. But there's a wall there, and then there's a mullion in front of the wall, and it's just not right. The very first thing you do in this situation is you create yourself an elevation with this little section and stare at that wall by standing in front of it. I usually use little sections, and I only want to take a look at what's in front of me. So I'm going to bring this back. And I'm going to stand in the hallway looking that way, toward the left, toward that wall. I want to find out which of these walls owns that corner. If I click on this wall here, that corner is not highlighted. That corner does not belong to this wall. If I click on this wall here, notice the edge is highlighted. That corner belongs to this wall. This wall is problematic. So, to solve corner conditions, you have to go into plan view. You got a little elevation set up here, a little section. Double click and look at it in elevation. This is the elevation view. This is the wall. This is the sliver. And when you're in elevation view, these views here, this is turned on. The crop box is turned on. This box is cropping the drawing. Like it'll literally hide the drawing if the crop box is too small. So sometimes you need to adjust this to expose the floor and the ceiling and all the elevations of the objects you want to see. So this crop box is turned on and it's visible. You can turn off the crop box and you'll see the entire elevation. but this is neater. It just shows me inside the box. And then this box here, crop region visible, it'll hide the box itself. It'll hide this rectangle. You don't need to see the rectangle. It'll still work. It'll still crop the view, but it'll hide the box. Before and after is this wall here. This is the wall. And what you have to do is customize the wall. You have to draw the wall with a hole cut out of it. So here, you edit the profile of the wall. The wall becomes a line drawing. See, it becomes a line drawing. This rectangle here is a line drawing. And you need to draft around the opening. You literally need to trace the edge of the opening to here and to there. Escape, escape. TR trim. Trim the corners. And make sure the wall looks like this. When I hit tab, that's the wall. The shape of the wall has a notch cut out of it. The edit profile command lets me draw a wall shape and include openings in the wall. I can also draw a shape inside the wall. I cannot touch these lines. These lines have to be perfectly, this has to be a boundary, perfectly drafted. But I can draw shapes inside the wall as well. And when I accept this tool, I wind up with this in 3D. A wall with a hole in it. Right there. So this is a way of allowing myself to customize walls with edit profile and draft custom openings, because I can't draw a circular opening with the wall opening command. It only draws rectangles. So you draw special openings with this tool here, as long as this object is not touching the edges. Delete. It has to be perfectly drafted. All the edges as a loop, closed loop, perfectly drafted. And then I got rid of that leg. I drew around that leg. So I went around the window. So now when I accept, and you look in 3D, you'll have a wall that looks like this with a hole cut out of it. Now you can see what's happening at the corner. What's happening at the corner here is that there's two mullions on top of each other. If I turn on line weights and I change the line weights here, I change the scale to, let's say, a 1/2 inch scale or a 3/4 inch scale. You see there's two mullions on top of each other. This mullion, tab, tab, click. That mullion belongs to this curtain wall here. This mullion here belongs to this curtain wall on the left. They're running into each other. Right there. They're on top of each other. This is the corner condition. So when you have a corner, you have options. You first delete the one you don't want, unpin this and delete it. And then you grab the one that's left over, unpin it, and manipulate it. And here are your options. Here in the project browser, you've got circular mullions, L corner mullions, and quad corner mullions. Each of these can replace this mullion with a different design. So if I go 5x5 corner mullion, it'll become this here in plan. You can see it here. It looks like this. That's called a quad. That's called an L corner mullion. If I grab that mullion, I can turn it into a quad, a 4x4 quad. This is a quad. It's just a square. If I want other designs, I have to grab this mullion, edit type, duplicate it, and change its properties here. This doesn't give me the measurements until you reach the bottom. So here, I want to go to the very bottom, and there is the size of the mullion. This mullion is, I guess it would be 8 inches. It's 4 inches wide and 4 inches tall. So if you want something smaller, you type it here, and it becomes that size. Custom. But in our situation, I don't want that mullion at all. So I'm going to delete it. And what you wind up with is a piece of glass that are overlapping at this corner. It winds up looking like this. Two pieces of glass overlapping each other. And so to resolve that, you have to finish the design first. You have to decide how the wall is going to be subdivided. For example, this wall here. You've got to make an elevation of that wall here. It's small. These tags are smaller because I'm at a larger scale here. they're dependent on the scale. So if I draw an elevation, for example, here, what's called a section tag, and I flip it over and I look toward this wall here, right there, I can look at an elevation by double clicking here. There's the wall in front of me here. I could subdivide it here using the grid command. Here's the grid command, and I can click here and here, and it cuts through the wall. I can then come in here and change these measurements and make them more exact. However, in our design, we actually know where the locations are going to be of these grid lines here. I'm going to delete this one. Hover, click on the mullion, delete it. I know where the grid lines are supposed to be located because there's little lines right there. I'm going to turn off the line weights. There's little joints right there showing me where the glass panels are located. So I don't have to do the work of measuring how big I want the glass to be. I'm just gonna highlight those locations there. I'm going to highlight with the reference plane where the middle of this mullion is. Tab until you find the midpoint. If you can't find the midpoint, you draw it at the end and move it down into the right location to find the center of that mullion. If you have to, here's the reference plane here. Tab, click. So there. These are the location of the vertical joints. That one's going to be vertical joints and the mullions for our future door. In this elevation, I need two joints here. Curtain wall grid, put one here and put one here. Once you've located them, you don't need these reference planes. You don't need that reference plane any longer. I know where those joints are. How about this elevation here? Double click on the arrowhead. This is where the door is going to go. So add a grid, escape, add a curtain wall grid here and here, escape. I don't need these joint lines anymore, so I can get rid of this joint here, this joint here. There's the door, the future door. Delete that mullion on the floor, unpin it. If it's locked, unpin it. And there's the panel. These get mullions. So grab the mullion. We're going to use a 2x4. I'll put one here and one there. Grab the panel, tab, click on the panel, unpin it, and replace it with the door that you like. In this case, we've got a door here called curtain wall glass single, and that'll become the door that gets placed there. Go back to plan, make sure it's facing the right direction, there. And now you've got your design. And now you've dealt with a corner. And now you can deal with the overlap at this exact corner situation here. Only after the design is complete would I recommend doing this. So here at this situation there, I would go back to the plan, and I've got two pieces of glass overlapping each other right there. What I have to do is the following. You have to grab each panel of glass as if it's a wall and use the edit profile command to adjust the size of the glass location. Again, the edit profile command was when we drafted a wall, and we did this a few minutes ago, but it's where you draft the wall and you transform it into a line drawing. So for example, here, you click on the door, use edit profile, and this 3D model becomes a line drawing. And if you draw the lines that connects the dots to the edges of the wall and you trim the edges, I use trim command, then the wall becomes a special shape. There. If you don't like what you've done, you can always click on the object and reset the profile, and it goes back to normal. I cannot create an opening that's a special shape other than a rectangle with the wall opening command. I can't use the rectangle. I can't use the wall opening command to make an opening that's circular, or an arch opening, or a circular opening, or triangular opening, or a special shape of wall. I can't do that with the wall opening command. I can only do it by going edit profile to customize the shape of the wall. That technique is what happens in a similar fashion to this piece of glass here. You grab that piece of glass there, tab, click on it, unpin it. What you have to do is use this command called edit in place. You're going to edit that 3D model and move its edges to the right location. So you're going to break the rules that Revit is expecting. It's expecting this panel to go to here. You're going to customize it. What you have to do is edit in place. You're in a special menu. There's a bunch of new tools up here. Ignore those. You're going to select the panel itself. Click. When you select the panel itself, you're going to zoom in here and you're going to move the edge of the glass to the right location. I'm going to move it to the edge here. You're going to remove the constraints, which are the rules Revit's expecting. You're breaking the rules, basically. Remove the constraints and accept the model. So that glass moved to the very end of that wall there. Then you have to grab this panel, tab, click, and do the exact same thing again. Unpin it, zoom in, grab the panel, edit it in place, move it to the right location, maybe here, remove the rules, remove the constraints, and accept it. Finish the model. What you've done then is you built a custom 3D model at that corner condition that looks like this. That has two pieces of glass abutting each other. They run right into each other. That is not normal. Revit doesn't handle that corner in a normal way. You have to physically model it this way by customizing this panel and this panel using the command I just showed you. That works now. So the drafting has to be perfect first. This has to be a right angle and accept what you get in plan, and then decide if you want mullions at all. If you want a mullion, erase one, leave the other one on the screen, and then select it and modify it into a corner mullion. You've got several choices for corner mullions. If you want no mullions at all, you delete them both from a corner condition, and then you customize the glass to do what we just did there. So that could be rather tricky. So that's very, very custom. But we have another place in this design that's very custom, and I'll show it to you now. So in the design, we have another situation. I'm trying to highlight all the ones that are not exactly normal. There is a wall right here in the hallway. This office space here, this kitchen here, has a curtain wall here that is slightly unique. And let me locate it here. It's here. That wall has a window that is cut here. The glass wraps around the corner in an L shape, except it is 3'6" above the floor. And then as it turns the corner around the elevation in the hallway, it continues along its path here. These are all pieces of glass here. And below here is gypboard. And then there's a door here at the very end of that series of windows. Again, very custom. The rest of these we've done. This is very unique. So let's unpack this. So here's the situation right there. So build the curtain wall first. We've got one saved. You can do this with curtain wall number 1 and customize it from the start, or use our saved curtain wall, which already has mullions at the beginning and end of the curtain wall, already has the glass saved. So it's a shortcut. I like shortcuts. I will use our design. And our design here is called John's Temp. And I'm going to grab that corner and draw the curtain wall here, hyperextending it past the corner. I will draw another wall, and then I will draw that one let's see. What I'll do is I will draw it from here past the corner. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the elevations. The elevations here looks like, if I look closely, looks like we have 2 mullions. It looks to me, in this elevation here, looks to me that there's a mullion here and the door frame next to it. 2 mullions side by side, 2 frames. And so in this case, I'm going to assume that this mullion here, I'll move it over to there. That mullion there belongs to the door. And there should be another mullion next to this in plan. 2 mullions side by side. So I'm going to change the design slightly because I want to accommodate the look I'm after. So make sure the curtain walls are facing the same direction, facing out, facing out. Okay, we're good. Trim these two together like a normal wall. TR for trim. Trim this to here. Okay, I've got my strange corner. Fix the problem with the corners. We've done this before. And so if I'm here, oh, actually, I think I put this in the wrong. Let's see. Let me see this. Oh, I'm doing that. That's not the location it's supposed to be. Sorry. That is a corner, but this is the corner I'm after. This is the corner here. So I want to make sure I'm in the right location here. This is the one with the smaller windows. So here's the one curtain wall. There's the double mullions. Here's the other curtain wall. Let's call it here. And I'll go through the corner. There. Trim these two together. Fine. Look at it in 3D. And there's my wall there. And these walls are 8'2" tall. So this curtain wall here is 8'2" tall. And this curtain wall here, highlight, make sure it's highlighted there. Highlighted 8'2" tall. And now comes the hard work of I have to cut a hole out of this wall. I know this wall is supposed to be, the bottom of the wall is 3'6" tall. But even if I did that, I still have a little sliver right there of a wall that should not be there. I know this wall here is the same practice here. This wall here has a sill of 3'6". So it's a horizontal band of windows right there, side by side. However, I need to make sure this edge here is cut out. This wall here does not own that edge, that corner. See that corner there? Click on this wall. This one owns that corner. That edge right there is part of this blue wall highlighted. So that is the culprit that needs to be corrected. So elevate this elevation here, this wall here. Look at this here. Look at that wall here using this section tag. Launch it. I'm looking at it here. Here's the wall. Here's the leg I'm trying to get rid of. You need to cut the hole out of the wall and go around that window. Edit profile like we've done before. Pick the edges of the opening here, here, and here. Cut this line in half. Use a little split line command. Cut this line in half so that I can trim the top. Here's trim command. I can trim this line. You see it stops right there. This to here. It erases it. And then this to here. So now if I highlight the entire wall, hover, tab, that wall has a hole cut out of it because I went around the opening. If I do this work and I accept it, then you'll have the right condition here to start with here. There's your condition there. So that solved the problem with the wall appearing on the corner. Now, what do you want to do about this corner here? You can put a mullion there by deleting one of the mullions here, unpinning it, delete, grabbing the one that remains, unpinning it, and choosing a corner mullion here from your list. We don't have a mullion in this design. I'm going to delete it, and now I have to fix the glass. I have to fix that joint after I've located the joints. I want to do that work last. I want to come into here and grab some reference planes. And if I zoom in closely, I can see little tick marks that highlight where the panels are subdivided. Again, you don't have to do this in plan. We have a CAD drawing to work with. But if you don't, you can simply add these grid lines here. And later we'll learn some techniques to do this a little easier with measurements. But here are the joint lines. I can see that they're here. So this is where the joints are supposed to be. It'll subdivide the glass around the corner. Grab this. I can rotate this 90 degrees. And then I can relocate it. Again, that's why I treat these as cameras. I'm going to look at this entire area inside the dotted line here. I want to look at the entire area here. And I'll elevate that wall using the section tag temporarily. When I'm done, I'll click on this and delete it. It's a temporary digital camera, as an example. So if I double click, there's the glass right there. You can see it here. And what I'll want to do is I will cut the joints here. I'll use the architecture curtain wall grid command, and I'll cut it here and there and there and there. Escape, escape. And I no longer need these joint lines here. Delete them. And now I've got this. Now, sometimes it's really hard to work in Revit when I'm here. It's like this wall is blocking. I can click on this wall and hide it. I can click on this wall and hide it. And later I have to unhide it. Another quick tip on how to work in Revit is if you're in 3D view, you can launch this thing here called a section box. And I turn that on. And it puts a box around the entire drawing in a 3D view only. If I go to the top view here, I can take that box and I can have it surround the specific area I'm trying to focus on. I'm only looking at this office here and this office only, and it'll crop everything out of the entire drawing. I put it in the hallway and focus on just that room there. But because I'm in 3D, it does the following. There. It hides anything outside of this box. Very, very useful tool. I can see what's happening here. And I can see that my design is accurate. I wrapped around the corner with these windows, and now I need to put a door there. I can choose a standard door, for example. I can grab, again here, I can grab a wood door, architecture, go to wood, go to door here. It's not a curtain wall door now. It's just a standard door. I have one here, 36 by 96. I'm not sure if that's the right that height, but I can put it on this wall here. And then I can abut it next to the mullion here. Align next to that mullion there. This door here is sort of off center because this door has a set of tools here. Let me close this. I opened the family by mistake. I'm going to close that. This door here has settings here that let me do what's called an inset. And if I change this to 0, the door slides inside the opening upwards. So click on this and I can make this 0 and the door slides. It's expecting the door to be inside of a masonry wall. And in the masonry wall, you can place a door in the opening front to back at any location. So that number lets me slide the door inside the opening. But this mullion has a frame that sticks out as an example because the design of the door has that frame and I don't have access to that thickness of the mullion. If I go to here and go edit type, there's no mention of a jamb thickness in this family, so I can't modify it. What I could do as an alternative, because otherwise you're going to wind up with this. You'll wind up with this situation here. Otherwise, what I can do is I can delete that door, put another curtain wall in here, and this time it's going to be, I'll use my John Temp curtain wall. I'll put my John curtain wall here. I'm going to go here to there. It already comes with mullions. I can make an adjustment here, make it slide back slightly here because this is not in the right location. It should be there. The door should be wider, but I just need to figure out, how far back to move it. So let's go here. So this needs to move. This is the reference plane, and it should move back this distance from here to here. So this wall should move back to that green line right there. And it puts it right in the right spot. There's the door, and there's the reference plane. Tab, tab. That's the reference plane there. There's the door. The door is a panel that's 8'2" tall. If I remove that mullion at the bottom there, unpin it, delete, I can select the panel, tab, 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 unpin the panel, transform it into a door, a single glass door, and there it is. And then make sure and plan it has the right swing. It's swinging into the room. That's the right kind of door. Go to 3D. The section box is still active, by the way. Here. And I'm done with this design. So there's a lot to be had with curtain walls. Obviously, it's a very sophisticated tool, but learning this tool is essential to creating commercial office spaces because you're mostly dealing with storefronts, and this tool, Curtain Wall Command, allows you to build any kind of storefront that you're after and manipulate all the parts and pieces of the storefront, which are panels, grids, and mullions. And once you master that, you can even get as far as customizing the doors themselves. Because right now, I only have a few curtain wall doors to choose from. But if I really wanted a different kind of door, a standard door, I've got to change a family. Let's do one. And it'll be part of this class. And feel free to review it because this is a little more advanced, but I think it'll be useful to you in your workflow. So if I look at my doors, my standard doors, this door here, for example, I want that solid door to appear here in my curtain wall, but I don't want the frame. This door, if I go edit type, has no features here, no ability to hide the frame of the door. It doesn't exist. It's part of the actual three-dimensional modeling of the model itself, the family. So what I have to do is I have to select that door and edit the family. And in this family editor, I'm going to delete the parts I don't want to see. This is a little more advanced, but let me walk you through what a family looks like. Why typically it's a lot of work to build a family, but there's some things you can do to customize them to your liking. So I'm going to edit that family. And immediately I'm in a different file. The file format here, Revit interface completely changes. I'm in the family editor. I'm in a file called Door Passage Single Flush RFA. I'm in a different environment. This is a separate file. I'm going to immediately come in here and I'm going to save as family, and I'm going to give it a unique name. I don't want the work I'm doing here to interfere with all the other families with the exact same naming convention. So what I'll do is I'll just simply place it in a special family folder. Here, for example, I'll call it, John's temp door as an example. Save it. And in this family file, I have to have a brand new name. I'm going to start editing it and remove parts I don't want to see. If I go to the floor plan, double click here, reference level. I want to hide all these notations here. These are all part of the Revit programming for families. I'm going to hide them all. VG, turn off annotations. And now I got just the graphics. I'm going to delete anything that looks like a door jamb or a frame. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this. I'm going to delete this and that. And maybe that as well. And these guys, delete. I deleted anything that looks anything resembling a door jamb. Because what you saw there was coarse, medium, and fine information that appears in your Revit file. And I deleted all of it. When I go to 3D, I should just see a door. And it looks like there's a little leftover here. There's a little frame here across the top of the header of the door. Delete that too. And there's a door inside of an opening with the frames eliminated. Now the opening has to be the right size. It has to follow the size of the door. I don't want a gap. So I'm going to look at this in elevation. Elevation, exterior view. And what Revit does here, and let's go VG again and hide the annotations because I don't want to see them. They're going to confuse me. There is an object here, tab, click. That object right there in a Revit family, right there, opening cut, is a 3D model that cuts the hole out of the wall. I need to edit that sketch and need it to follow the edge of the door. So I'm going to grab this and slide it over. I'm going to remove the rules, constraints or rules. I'm going to make it slightly bigger. Remove the rules. And now I'm going to align it to the edge of the door. And honestly, before we do this, well, actually, yeah, the edge of the door is here, right there. That's the opening. AL for align. Go to the edge of the door with this and lock it together. Edge of the door with this opening, lock it together. Edge of the door with that opening, lock it. And then when you go back to your menu here, accept these changes. You should now have an opening that follows the edge of the door. Look in 3D. Okay, the door is devoid of any frame, any trim. It's just following the shape of the door. I can now load this into my project and close this file. This file called John's temporary door. I'm going to load it into a project and close this file. It'll return to Revit. I then pick on a menu what file I want to copy it into if there's more than one Revit file open, but there's only one file here. Our floor plan is open. Here's the changes. It's going to save this RFA file into my folder, and it's going to copy that family into our Revit project. So now my Revit project will own that door. So if I go to 3D here, let me turn off the section box, by the way. I can turn it off here. See a little section box, escape. You'll see here, section box, turn it off. So actually, I want to keep it on for a second. I want to replace this door. So now I can go to the floor plan here. And I can see where the door is located here. This door is going to turn into a panel. Let's call it a glass panel. And now I'm going to grab my door. And my door here is called John's temp door. And I'm going to John's temp door right there. I believe that's the door we created. And I'm going to put it inside this wall panel here and click. And now it got placed inside the frame here. And here's the door replacing the panel here. And I just have to make sure that the door itself is the right measurements. I have to make sure in elevation, this elevation view here, I've got to make sure that this door is the right size. This door should be the little tape measure here. This door should be 3 foot wide, and it should be 8 feet tall. 8 feet tall, and luckily this door is 3 by 8 feet tall. So I made sure that my sizes here are exactly 3 by 8. make sure the door is exactly 3 by 8 because it won't stretch to the size of the panel. It's not a curtain wall panel. It's a standard door. Standard doors don't stretch with Revit panel families. So I have to manually make sure the door size is entered correctly in the menu. This here is exactly the size it needs to be to replace the panel. So once I drew the door on top of the panel got erased. I'm going to close this for a second. Watch out, Revit it'll launch the family if you double click. So I accidentally opened the family there, but there's the door itself I'm using. I have to troubleshoot. There's a little piece of a panel that seems to be here. I'm not sure why there's a little something extra there. I'm going to delete that if I can. I'll have to troubleshoot that after class. But that's one method of placing a standard door in a curtain wall panel. The other way of doing this, maybe it might be more logical, is do the following. Make this panel here a standard panel, a standard wall, and then put the door inside of a standard wall. Because I'm seeing that there's some extra panels that are appearing on either side of the jamb. So make this a standard wall. I selected the panel, and I'll make the panel a generic 4-inch wall. There's the wall right there. See here? It's a wall. If it's a wall, then you can grab a normal door, for example, our door, and put it into a normal wall. Not a panel, but a normal wall. This is now a normal wall. I can click here and there. It places it inside the wall, like it normally would. And I don't have any extra panel left over on either side. So next situation, it's probably best to replace the panel with a wall and then put the door inside the wall. The wall will disappear if the door is the size of the wall exactly, and it is. And there I now have a new door that is a wood door inside of a curtain wall system. So that is the concept of curtain walls. This is a very complicated topic. It takes lots of practice to understand how to build these things. You'll have this recording to lean on. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions on curtain wall in particular, but it's important that you understand that and you have this skill set because it'll allow you the ability to build any type of exterior surface that has glass and mullions. And that's it for our class today. I'll see you all next week.